Ladies and gentlemen, are we live? Yes, how about that? As if by magic, we are live once again. How's everybody doing on this really nice Wednesday, August 19th, 2026? And wherever you are, I hope you're managing to either stay cool or enjoy being outdoors, however, whatever nature presents you. I hope you manage to enjoy it and at least, not suffer. Life's a little too short for that. But anyway, we've got some really good. I'm going to tease tomorrow's special guest, and tomorrow we're going to have Laura Lacco on from Mission Viejo, and she's running for city council down there. And we're pretty excited to hear what she has to say. She comes from a politically inclined family. Her sister, coincidentally, is on the ballot in Kansas to be the Secretary of State. And it's always sometimes it's the positions like that that get the least attention that deserve the most coverage. So maybe we'll get an interstate call or interstate, out of state, whatever call from Laura's sister in Kansas. But in the meantime, Mission Viejo has always attracted lots of people because it's really convenient. And it's right near what they call the El Toro Y, which is where the 5 and the 405 freeways meet. Sound like that Saturday Night Live thing in California is you go to the 405 to the 5 to 110, then south to the 710. Anyway, we'll leave that alone for now. But you know what, guys? Because the some of the topics today are gonna be really serious. But I want to play you in with a little Psycho Donald just because it applies. Hang on.
Trump can't see your face after the fact. Iran's got us by the old nutsack. His policies put the world on fire. Can't count anything, his brain is fried. Psycho Donald, qu'est-ce que c'est? Fa 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 fa. Better run, 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 run away. Psycho Donald, qu'est-ce que c'est?
So, guys, I hope you kind of enjoy that and saw my point about Iran. Excuse me, and I beg for this every day. I beg the president to please God have an Oval Office address and and explain to me how we're doing so well and winning over there. I thought there was gonna be so much winning, I'd be sick of winning, and I'd kind of like see if we're winning this one. Sure doesn't sound like it to me. Doesn't sound, you know what? And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't sound like that to anybody, or it doesn't look like that to to anybody that's in the real world. And I'm going to tell you, I was thinking about this the other day. He has Natalie Harper, whatever it is, following him around, printing out positive articles all day to make him feel good. And somehow or other, I don't think those articles are particularly well vetted. Like, I don't think that the source of the source of the praise is irrelevant as long as there is praise. So that opens the door to all kind of I don't know, like fraud kind of stuff. Like, what if she keeps telling the president, "You are the most popular or this organization says you are the best president in history. No one is greater than you. You deserve everything." And like I said, let's assume that the source is not necessarily questioned. So, to my way of thinking, she's contributing to a fantasy world to help the president exist. And it's my kind of thought that if you're intentionally feeding the president of the United States misinformation, then that kind of sounds like treason. I mean, not like what they do at the CIA kind of stuff. That's clearly not how can I put this? Not a positive development to need to have a human printer follow you around. Let's say wouldn't you love to see the actual stuff she prints out? Matter of fact, I'm surprised nobody's hacked into that old laptop she has, or maybe they have and we just don't know about it. But yeah, it just seems kind of like treason. And there's a few topics I want to touch on just early on. Uh, and like I said, the second thing is that I think the president and by extension Republicans, and you guys know I always try to be as nice as I can be with this kind of stuff. And I kind of think that they just might have like a credibility problem, like they kind of don't tell the truth. Like, but nothing demonstrates Trump's truthfulness than an AI generated cartoon of him in the new ballroom with George Washington with Trump thanking George Washington for his contributions and ideas to the ballroom. Uh, you know, I mean, if your child was doing this, wouldn't get some sort of an intervention or some sort of help somewhere to, just as a precaution? I'm like, what do you think the guy would need some sort of a basic checkup? But you know what? That's okay because the Republicans know what a checkup is. A mental health checkup, like a cognitive decline checkup, in their minds, if you can distinguish a dog from a whale or a fish or a bird, then you ain't cognitively declined yet. And I think I would beg to differ with that standard. I think the standard ought to be slightly higher than is that Mr. Rogers saying, "Oh, what did he do?" Mr. Rogers, I don't know, whatever it was, and Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, Mr. Rogers something or other. So anyway, I just think that just maybe there might be room for just a morsel of truth somewhere. And I say I deliberately put that. I did another thing with Trump lost Iran while golfing with the tan, and guys, aren't you curious how much this cost? Doesn't it seem like there's a lot more money going out than coming in? I mean, think about it. We've depleted our supply of a certain type of missile that at $4 million a pop, and these guys just go shoot it off like it's a Roman candle on 4th of July. But yeah, have you noticed that? And as a consequence of all that, I'm going to lead into something just devastating. I mention it a good bit because it's not the easiest thing to. I take that back. It is really easy to understand if you just kind of don't get too caught up in the highfalutin college part of it. And I'm talking about the what's generally called the bond market. And we all know that the U.S. funds its operations through revenue, whether it's tax revenue or or they sell bonds to raise money. And the question always is, well, how much interest do we have to pay on these bonds? Because it's this is a really big deficit, and if we got to pay interest on that, basis points are huge, and basis point is like 1/100th of a real point. So the bond market is really sensitive, and when people start selling your bonds, that's what happens is when people start selling your bonds, it usually gets worse before it gets better. Other people start questioning your ability to pay back. After all, a bond is a debt I promise to pay, and in exchange for you lending me $100,000 for 30 years, I will give you 5.33% interest. And that 5.33% interest, as of yesterday, was like the highest since '07, the highest since that big housing crash in '07, '08. So, and keep in mind, Trump ran up the deficit $4 trillion by himself. His big, beautiful bill, while it took everything away from you and me, uh, it didn't do that to the others. You know what I mean? It didn't. That $40 trillion deficit, rather that $3.8 trillion that he added to it. Yeah, he added to your debt and my debt. But you know what he did? He added to the bank accounts of his buddies. So he just robbed everybody, which is kind of what he does. And now, if you kind of look around, you will see like I said, it's just there. The interest rates are spiking, while the stock market's at an all-time high. We all know that under the circumstances, it's a little top heavy, and there's going to be, come the day of the revolution, when all this AI stuff gets sorted out. Uh, God only knows where we'll be. And I'm going to relate AI to the deficit for a second. And there was some economists were chatting about, uh, is it possible that the AI boom will help generate enough tax revenue that maybe we can tackle the deficit? And I gotta love the answer to this. The answer was great. Well, depends on how many people put out of work by that technology. Like, yeah, I feel like what's her name, Lucy in the Charlie Brown movie, that or comic strip, the Christmas thing, and what's her name, Pepper Patty. Somebody always pulls the football before Charlie Brown has a chance to kick it, and the Trump administration just keeps missing at everything they do. It's uncanny how bad his results are turning out to be, specifically in the revenue versus or the deficit versus revenue calculation. I mean, he added to this thing 10% by himself. And think about, how many generations is that? I mean, I don't know what happens, but there's people talk about whether the debt burden is sustainable or not sustainable. Well, I think that bonds, just by their very nature, are like you know a camel and the straw thing. The camel can take a lot of straw, but that one point you get that one extra straw, and the camel just collapses on all fours. And believe me, you certainly don't want the economy to collapse on all fours. Uh, but when you look at Trump's economic history, you have to conclude. Now, listen, I'm actually talking evidence here, like based on past behavior, and past behavior that's been analyzed as to commonalities. And I think it's pretty much the consensus. Trump will buy something. In the old days, it was a casino or a hotel or a airline, whatever he wanted to buy, he'd buy it. And then guess what? He would saddle it up with debt. I mean, just leverage the living daylights out of it. And guess what happens after that? Yeah, you don't really need to knock before you come in with this one. That's right, bankruptcy. And it's happened like a cajillion times. And the funny one is the few in Las Vegas that were casino related. He took over. He took over a rigged game to begin with and couldn't run it. So I think there's more than enough reason to question his financial genius. Even though I do think he is kind of a genius. I mean, he's the only pagan I know that managed to sell $300,000 worth of his own $60 Bibles that are totally unique because they have a copy of the Constitution in it and something from Trump. I know, and you see the Republicans have just been bulldozing people, bullying people, and I think they just hit the critical mass. And something makes me say that or add to that is Frank Bruni wrote a column, I guess it was today, and it was something like Democrats repeat after Buttigieg and El Sayed. So like that's a little odd. So anyway, of course, I would peruse it, and his premise is way back when Democrats used to just pick Republicans' positions apart without being really positive and forceful in explaining the change. So, and let's just assume that be true, just for the sake of argument here. So, what's Buttigieg? So, he's interviewing Buttigieg, and the subject of freedom comes up. And, and he says something like, I don't know if I'm really free if I can't marry who I want. I don't know if women are really free if they can't get health care they need. Freedom is a different thing, and it's being eroded. And we Democrats are the good guys. We are riding in. We are the guys on the white horses to change this. Okay. I mean, think about that. A Democrat, or just say, like, instead of a Mongol horde, you've got a horde of Democrats on white horses charging to to just, I don't want to say destroy, but to beat the existing power. And now you kind of get it. We can frame this positively. Why can't somebody get married to a person of the same sex? I mean, whatever they want to do, isn't that kind of guaranteed under the Constitution? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So you really see that, while Trump's painting himself as this great patriot who's looking out for everybody's rights, truth of the matter is only one person that Trump ever looks after, and that's Trump. That's why he makes $2 billion a year. And you have to go home and try to explain to people how great it is that their gasoline is only $4 a gallon. And that, geez, they're lucky, that old fertilizer didn't go up more than it went up, right? And at that point, Republicans are clearly on the defensive. And when a Republican's on the defensive, it's not uncommon. How about that? It's not uncommon for them to resort to what are known as ad hominem attacks. And those are attacks on the person. When you can't reasonably attack the person's positions, you attack them because they plagiarized a paper in college, 80 years ago, and therefore they're not credible now. They'll do that kind of stuff. And the more they do that, the more that highlights the fact that they can't attack on the merits. So I know you guys have seen that, and anyway, that's the name and how it came from, ad hominem, attack against the person. Okay, so let's see here. Uh, and then you got an interest. I'm gonna, the El Sayed part of this is El Sayed. When you call him about being a socialist, he says, "No, man, I'm the biggest capitalist alive." Like, okay, explain this to me. And he says, "Well, aren't we kind of betraying the capitalistic spirit of America when we allow too much wealth in the hands of too few? Uh, don't we betray the public when our markets aren't competitive or accessible?" So, El Sayed's a capitalist. Let's ride the capitalism wagon. Uh, Buttigieg is a personal freedom advocate. Well, let's ride that horse too. I mean, guys, the truth of the matter is, if we stay united, we might win. If we, go our separate ways, we'll inevitably lose. And that's the circular firing squad they always talk about Democrats, having. And my point is, excuse me, that I don't care what is behind the person's name as long as it has a D. Okay, if it can be the Democrat. I don't know. I mean, you can't have like I don't whatever it is. I don't care if it's Democrat socialist. I don't care if it's Democrat communist. I don't care if it's Democratic capitalist. Whatever it is. If it's got a Democrat title to it, vote for the person. This is about up and down. There is no election too small. Nothing can be overlooked. And just to show you that I actually believe this, I make it a point to interview as many local politicians that are in the general election as possible. And I love talking to school board people and school board candidates. And I'm talking to, matter of fact, I think it's Monday, is Dave Petty. And Dave is running for the Moulton Niguel Water District Board. And, like I said, sometimes the people that get the least coverage deserve the most, or sometimes the people with the quietest, assignments deserve the most coverage. So it's gonna be a real pleasure to talk to him. Like I said, and Laura Lacko on running for city council in Mission Viejo, and who else? God knows, my mind's kind of slipping. I usually can't be responsible for remembering too much, so I have started to write things down. Of course, then I have to remember where I wrote them. But anyway, let's keep going here. And the Republicans are completely insane. How about the Muslim family in Texas who gets thrown out of the Republican function? They're registered, get thrown out. Some woman, I forgot where, was attacked in a parking lot because she had a hijab on. I mean, guys, and it's probably bad and wrong in some way to pick on people like this. But I mean, that's just not. It's not a smart thing. It's not an intelligent thing. It's not a considerate thing. And worst of all, it's certainly not an American thing. If you believe in Thanksgiving, we can sit down with the Indians, but the Republicans can't sit down with the Muslims. I mean, I went on a little spiritual journey not long ago, and I went to the Sikh Gurdwara, the Buddhist temple, the mosque, and one or two others. Forgot what they were. And while I firmly believe the Sikhism is the way to go, I can tell you that you know that the majority of Muslims really are peace loving people. I talked to the imam. He was good enough to chat with me for like 30 minutes. Oh, and another guy, Kareem, like he explained things to me, and I just, I thanked them, and I certainly shouldn't be like this, but afterwards, this little food put out different members of the community bring it because everything's got to be halal and all that, and some woman had this thing, and I unwrapped it and it smelled heavenly. And so I took one and I'm like, my God, what is this stuff? This is great. And it's as it turns out, it's not like from the Arab part of the world. It's from I guess it could be if you think about this. It's Afghan, not Afghan and but it's just Afghan, and it was called Balani. And it was some kind of potato filled something or other, and it was so good. But anyway, in Texas, a Muslim, Republican Muslim, can't go to a Republican convention. Or how about this? There's a Coast Guard guy who gets called to in the reserves, and he gets called to duty in California. And he's got a choice of leaving his wife and child behind in, I think it was Austin or something, and they just all packed up and came to California. I mean, the atmosphere is just tense, and that I guess it reminds me of some of the worst days that you would ever hear about the South. I mean, God, I mean, how can we ever be forgiven for lynching people and all that? And the truth of the matter is, you just try to do your best to respect people and try to show a little respect and dignity, which is a little lost on the Republicans when they're too busy, like smashing you to the ground to keep you down. And you know what else, guys? I got off to such a rambunctious start, which is kind of unusual. I mean, it is Wednesday, but I got off to such a rambunctious start that I completely forgot to call it the phone number and tell you to give us a call if you're up to it, 949-629-3820. And whether you agree, disagree, or just want to vent, let me know. It's always a little more fun with a few callers. So, guys, with that in mind, let's kind of get back to this. So, yeah, I mean, they. So, of course, the lesson to be learned from that is don't do that. So that's why we Democrats, if it has Democratic Socialists, check. Democratic Communists, check. Democrat, whatever, check. Okay, I mean I hate to I hate to make it so drastic, but I swear I really do think of this as an existential election. I mean, and Trump has deleted something like 400 different databases and changed a few hundred others. So he's really destroying history in the past. And and what do you do? What do you do? Elections have consequences, guys. And if anybody wants to quibble about voting for a Democrat socialist, please, guys, please, I'll clear the lines for you. call in at 949-629-3820 and listen, just give me your best argument. I just don't get it. Uh, so yeah, I say Democrat, socialist, Democrat, communist. I don't care if it's. I mean, I would get a little sensitive as like Democrats for pollution. Yeah, I mean, I'd be a little upset about that. But in the meantime, you have to proceed along the proven fact that the worst Democrat socialist, I mean, the absolute worst, you can't imagine, is still better than the best Republican congressman that they have. And you guys know that's true because you've seen how Trump was able to bully them into doing the that big tax cut. And it's not like those guys needed it in the first place. I mean, that's the killer. Okay, and so as a analogy to Trump's business, as president for over 600 days, he can keep blaming Joe Biden all he wants, but like he just looks like at this point, he's a pathetic, washed up old man. And I can say that because I know what a pathetic, washed up old man looks like. And I think he's just about there. The only thing that's keeping him awake, yeah, I didn't know what else to say. The only thing that's keeping him awake and just might hold his interest is Natalie Harp, the human printer. And somehow that's something you would expect to see. Way back when they had these circus things that rode from town to town, and they had really simple attractions. And one of them I seem to remember was the bearded lady. And of course, as a kid, you don't know all that stuff. Just kind of like glued onto the show and take you 50 cents. Uh, but whatever these guys are doing, it is nothing but it's. I mean, and they don't even have decent to use smoke and mirrors. They just take your health care right in front of you. And how about the food SNAP benefits? And guys, I just think that if you want to claim to be some sort of Judeo-Christian based society, then I think you kind of need to act like a Judeo-Christian based society. And I told you briefly about the little spiritual journey I went on, and about as I did the Sikhs of the guys. They, I mean, their religion is like absolute equality. If I was, attending services at the Gurdwara, and the prime minister came in, they would just sit beside me on the floor. I mean, this is just man, woman. They don't care. Everybody's the same. And I know that sounds a little communistic, but in a small environment like that, it's really, it's a healthy environment with healthy values, and how and that the least you can give a kid is healthy values and give them a chance in life. So, which again ain't getting any easier. We got a lot of turbulence. We got the AI problem, and don't forget that includes the data centers as well as the cajillion dollars it takes to start one of these things or to take it public. I bet I wouldn't be surprised if Anthropic, I think they're funded by Google. I would bet they have already dumped almost $500 billion into this. And the only reason they dump $500 billion into it is because they think they can make $1 trillion back. And you see, at that point, when you have so many people with so much money, they really do take away opportunities from the small people just by withdrawing the dollar amount in circulation. And for America to really thrive, we need lower interest rates and reasonable cash flow. And let's see, these interest rates, you have to assume that that's not going to stop. And I'll just give you the basics of bonds in case you might have forgotten or weren't here the other day. But a country sells bonds, or even country sells bonds to raise money, and the U.S. sells them in like $10,000 to $100,000 increments, and they're good for they could be 30 days, they could be 30 years, and of course the interest rate varies depending on the term to maturity. And yesterday it was 5.33%, and what that does. that means that the amount we have to pay on interest to the lenders is more and more. And not only that, but this is happening. And let's I'll give you a quick thing. If nobody's buying your bonds or people are selling your bonds, what do you have to do? You got to give more interest rate to entice buyers in. On the other hand, if everybody's buying your bonds and everybody wants your stuff, guess what? You pay a lower interest rate because you are less of a risk. You're more of a certain to pay to repay. So what Trump has done has, thanks to his delusional tariff scheme, we have taken in substantially less money than we have spent by these tax cuts, by his policies. Uh, I mean, it's just staggering what he's managed to do, and how people manage to give him a pass. I'll never know. When you would ordinarily think, and I do this a lot, but you would ordinarily think that January 6th would kind of like, you know, disqualify him. I mean, like what did he have to do to get you to overlook that? And let's say I'm not even talking about the 34 count fraud conviction. I'm not talking about the Epstein files. I'm not. I'm just talking. What what lets you do this? What lets you how did you get convinced Trump was such a how about this? Such a messiah, since and with those cartoons AI images of him dressed like Jesus, rendering aid to whoever with his angelic wings. Oh, I mean, and see, I'm going to ask parents out there again, if your son or daughter had AI images of her with Jesus or him with Jesus or something like they were buddies, wouldn't you have at least a little chat with them? You don't have to rake them over the coals or anything, but I would think you'd, at least want to explore the possibility that something might be a little off. And when it's an 80-year-old man who does it, that's almost damn certain there's something going on up there. Uh, but again, the Republicans have they have no spine. Trump just, and he does this. He sucks the life of the vitality out of everything and everybody that's near him. I mean, I'm not a Melania fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I can see why why she would enjoy not being there, or with him wherever there is. Uh, I mean, what can you say? You know, he was the Stormy Daniels deal happened. I think when Barron went within weeks of Melania giving birth. It's not this guy's known for fidelity or anything. And yet, trying to paint the veneer of virtue. How about that? The veneer of virtue. Uh, he does that, and it's like like developers and some sleazy real estate people. You go look at the house and the condo, whatever it is, and the person will tell you, oh yeah, it's been remodeled down to the stud, so on and so forth. And in reality, they just kind of slap a coat of paint on it and try to sell it, make a quick buck. And just out of curiosity, does that remind you of anybody? Yeah, I kind of thought it might. And like I said, the guy's just, you can't be surprised that he's formed a criminal or started a criminal enterprise in the White House, because he dealt with criminal enterprises out of the White House. You guys were told all this, and he still didn't believe it. I just, and there just as there are, people. Some people can run faster than others. Some people can see the golf ball better than others. Sometimes some people ain't as bright as others, or they don't. Or what's worse is, what if they're bright and don't have the time to become you know uh, familiar with what's going on in the world. I can't say illiterate or anything that's kind of judgmental like that. But I mean, you can sit and listen to the radio these days with the net. What can't you hear? You get like, I'm sure there's like Radio Zimbabwe waiting, and every now and then it's good to kind of spin the radio dial and see where you end up, just for something different. But let's keep going here. And this was also really, really hard to swallow. And China is hunting for scientific talent, right? And you know what the really bad part of that is? We're making it easier for China to find talent. And you know, in China, as I understand, there's like humanoid robots and dogs just on the street. They're just light years ahead of us. And of course, what Trump's saying, no, that's not true, is being delusional, number one, and it makes everybody less competitive because you're listening to an idiot. I guess I could have been a little more polite there. Uh, but you know, it's like Fran Lebowitz said the other day, and this cracked me up. She said, and the scarier thing is, we're talking about, is, you know, is how stupid he is. She said, trust me, you don't know anybody as stupid as Donald Trump. And and the point she's trying to make is he's like really stupid. And I always thought it was a bad combination to have like the stupidest guy in the world have be the one that's that can access the nuclear codes. But again, that might just be you know, my little observation about things. And but like, why can't we find out things? Why don't we know how? I mean, why can't we find out how much the war cost? Why do they keep that stuff a secret? And we all know that if people want to keep things a secret, it's usually not particularly beneficial to them. Uh, but yeah, I mean, don't you think that's like fair game? And or how many missiles we used at $4 million a pop? And you know, you can go into the petty stuff, the 250 Escalades that Trump just ordered, the $1 billion fleet of airplanes from Christy Nome, who, the puppy killer, and these planes just sat vacant. But and the reason they were bought under a no bid contract, aren't we shocked? Was they needed the jets now to deport just those cajillion aliens or cajillion foreign nationals. I don't know what you want to call them. And yeah, we got to have like a little mini airline now. So yeah, I think the 10 airplanes were, you know, whatever it was, it's like one and a half times what they should have sold for at least. So there's a big windfall, and of course the no bid contract, which is kind of like a thank you, a reward, a gratuity, or something. Oh, and I'm gonna beg Democrats for one thing, please. And this goes out to local Democrats, and anyway, local Democrats. We'll leave it at that. Uh, well, you know what? Maybe we'll chat about that personally. So we'll kind of leave that one from behind. But yeah, if you repeat Buttigieg's thing about freedom, and do we have more of it or do we have less of it? And we have less of it. And Democrats need to be the ones that restore that. Same thing. Have markets become inaccessible? You guys know what it costs to start a business these days. Or how about what it costs to buy a car or rent a place? And listen, I know Newport's, you know, substantially different than a lot of places. But my one of my friends has a little condo on Bayside Drive. And of course I thought they were like horribly overpriced, like, you know, at least double. But anyway, but right next door to them is a apartment complex, smaller one on Newport Harbor, and I think that if I remember right, the rent like started at 63 or $6,500 or something. Uh, so in other words, if you don't make a quarter of a mil and don't mind blowing, you know, 72 grand of it, you know, we really don't want you. And of course, what a lot of people do is they keep these things is what they call a pied a terre, and I think that means like a toe in the sand or a foot in the sand or some kind of French thing. And it's just like a little, you know, like a weekend place where people go. They don't live there. They just kind of, you know, want to have like a little place to go in Newport or a little place to go, you know, wherever it might be. Uh, so yeah, rent starts at $6,300. Is that freedom? Is that capitalism? I mean, it might be capitalism, but it ain't healthy capitalism. So, and I'm not, I don't go for everything else Ayad says, but I'll tell you what I did go for that Mom Domney said, and I believe he's going to follow through on this. I think that, and let's assume that people have some basic right to eat. They might not have a basic right to, a 5-star Michelin meal, but I like to think that everybody's got some right to eat something. And if you have a right to eat something, then you obviously have to go buy that something or have that something delivered. And, New York's a really wild place. The blocks are so big and the buildings are so tall that, people sometimes live their entire lives within, a few square blocks. Uh, so it's a strange environment where you have a right to eat, but you have no place to buy food. And in those instances, in those food deserts, and we've got them here in California, I'm sure everybody's got them. On the nice part on 17th Street, there's 3 or 4 nice grocery stores. A couple blocks over, you have to go for miles, and then it may just be a little, market or something. Uh, so yeah, if the people have a right to eat, and they obviously need to possess that, that which with which they eat, and like I said, sometimes there's just no grocery stores. So I don't see anything wrong with the government run grocery store in those sorts of instances. I mean, and that kind of what a PX does on a military base. I think that PX is private exchange or personal exchange or something like that. Uh, but let's see here. Oh, and like I said, the reason I was so anxious to lead on with the bond problem or the interest rate problem is that, and this is courtesy of the Financial Times, that and this is a quote, front page news, long term borrowing costs hit highs as inflation and fiscal deficit fears rise. Isn't that just a devastating headline? Inflation, and it ain't going anywhere. These guys don't know how to deal with it. And fiscal deficits. And of course, they know how to add to it. It's just that too bad that that's the only thing Republicans are really good at. And if you historically look through Democratic Republican administrations, I think you'll see that the that the economy always performs better under Democrats than Republicans. You can come up with whatever reason you want, but the facts kind of speak for themselves. And as an aside from all that, how about this? This is the year 2026, right? Yep. So in 1996, that would have been 30 years ago, right? 1996 plus 30 should give you 2026. Is that right? Okay. Because not that long ago, the year of 1996, that the U.S. United States women's basketball team won an Olympic gold medal. I forgot where it was, but they won the gold medal. So that coincidentally is the same year the WNBA gets started. And I don't know how many people know, but my best recollection is that Billie Jean King was a really big deal in that she had experience in putting tournaments together somehow. I forgot the exact story, but Billie Jean King was one of the architects of the WNBA, and it looks to me as though they've succeeded beyond anybody's dreams. I mean, to me, when you can have women's sports athletic teams and their merchandise pays, people want the merchandise. I think you're pretty solid. And people want the Caitlin Clark, the Sophia Cunningham, the whatever's jerseys, and more power to them. Basketball's a really tough sport because even though it's supposed to be no contact, we all know there's contact. And these people, they may or may not be, physically large. I saw some of them that were. Uh, but, just banging into somebody, you get bruised and sore. And I mean, I can see why somebody would, need like an ice bath after something like that. But of course, that won't be me because we're more into the heat treatment if anything happens to me. And I made an observation earlier that I thought was fairly accurate. Of course, I'll ask you what you think. 949 and Colin. And my thought was this, that Trump and Republicans do things to people, Democrats do things for people. And isn't that really a nice little, easy to remember phrase about all that? I always kind of like trying to remember stuff like that. But anyway, is anybody in the housing market these days? I'm really curious how that's holding up. And let's see, we're here in Newport Beach, California, about 60 miles south of LA. And what about that frozen meat plant that kind of melted down? Can you imagine the rats and the coyotes and God knows whatever else? And like the property's gotten so expensive that people just don't sell. They can't afford to. They can't unless they leave the state. Uh, so, and it's funny when people move to Texas or Nashville, all that, they all do it for what I call a CPA kind of reason. It's like, no taxes and cheaper and all that. And of course, the other side of that is you get what you pay for. And relative to the price of housing, and of course, we know the price of housing. I know one of my friends bought a house in a nice part of town on the wall, across the street from the water interior lot. And I think they paid like $200,000 for it, remodeled it way back when, maybe 30 years ago. And I think their mortgage was like $2,000. Of course, our house is now worth like $2 million at least. And but my question is this: if the insurance company insures your $200,000 house, and over years it appreciates to let's start make first off at $1 million. Let's say your $200,000 house is now worth $1 million. Take $1 million to replace it. And my question is, shouldn't your insurance premium also go up 5 times because the insurance company's 5 times more on the hook for 5 times more? Yeah, I don't. I mean, and the reason I say that is, like I said, the devastation of the Palisades fire. I mean, that was just so many high dollar houses. You have to have a consortium of insurance companies to try and make pay the claims on it. Whatever it is, it's not going to be easy. I mean, I just can't imagine the billions of dollars. It just at some point, I just can't do it. My mind just won't let me get there. Uh, so yeah, guys, and I was thinking about also those those condos. I think they're called the Surfside condos in South Florida, maybe Fort Lauderdale. I forgot which little beach. And they started to collapse. It's like the towers, Surfside Towers, something like that. And of course, what they find is that it had been deteriorating for a long time, and finally it just gave way. And it's like my mechanic used to say, shoelaces hardly ever just pop; they usually fray and fray and fray before they pop. So there was some how can I put this? Some intuition that something was wrong, but of course nobody knows whatever. Was happy to pay the low homeowners fees to keep going. But these things were built, I think, in the mid to late 70s. And that period in time wasn't particularly known for what I'll call robust construction, which means a lot of people did a lot of, like just minimal work, charged the maximum, and took money and ran. And when people buy the condos, of course, there's a homeowners association and the obligation to take on a proportionate share of uh, maintenance or expenses. And I say it's nothing, not uncommon to get this is where the word special assessment came from. If you're in a condo complex, if you, please God, do not let them use the word special assessment. But special assessment could be 100,000, 200,000, even more, depending on where you are and how much it is. And so you have to be liquid to that amount. And I don't mean just kind of liquid as a matter of course. I mean like put one side because you never know. And because these things were built about when they were, and it's about time it is now, a lot of those things can start needing like lots of repairs. And the people that bought into a condo as like a first home and all that, uh, what if they sell before the special assessment? Great. But what if they get the special assessment and let's say on top of the I don't know $500, $800 a month homeowners fee, they have to come up with a cool 100 grand. And if they don't come up with it, the homeowners association can foreclose on the condo. So at this point, I think a lot of home prospect buyers or prospective home buyers are just trying to wait and feel this thing out. And don't forget, I forgot at what point in time, but construction changed from like a beam and joist to concrete slab, and those things are just incredibly cheap, and they just make like difficult. If you have to replace a pipe, you got to get a jackhammer operator in there to dig up the concrete. I mean, it's just a pain. They used to be done with like beams and joists and all that, and that you have a prayer with because if you have beams and joists, you have a crawl space underneath, so you can get two things as opposed to the concrete slab concept, which kind of irks me no end. So the point is that there's a lot of financial how can I put this? A lot of financial concerns these days that are relatively new at the territory. And while we'd always had deficit worries, it's never been like this. You might have the occasional bond sell off, but you don't have countries realigning themselves away from America. I mean, let's say Trump's just an unlikable human being, and he has pissed off everybody in the world. He threatens, and the reason he can do this is because he doesn't care. He is absolutely untethered to the thinking process. And only if you are untethered from the thinking process would you think that it's any time okay to threaten an ally like Oman. I mean, things aren't going really well for us in that part of the world anyway. We need like all the friends we can help get, and like I say, you can say a lot of things about Trump. They're just all not nice, and they're all unfortunately true. Uh, I tell people that the caddies kind of call him Pele because he kicked so many balls on the golf course. And the club champion scam was just so Trump. I love this. Whenever he develops or buys a new golf course, he declares the course closed. Then he'll play a round by himself. And you know what he does after that round? Is he declares himself the club champion. So of course you get like the portrait over the fireplace with club champion on it. And there's no company. He didn't let anybody else on the course. Uh, I mean, the extremes this guy goes to, it shows you how extreme he is. And uh, and how about today? Mike Johnson saying like, "Oh, if it wasn't for the war in Iran, gas prices wouldn't be so high." Well, yeah, I kind of get it. But guys, I say as bad as it is here, and I say I paid $6 a gallon for premium. I'd love to pay $4. I may never pay $5 again. And on some level, I think that gasoline ought to cost more than like water. So, and it's for the good it does and the bad it does. And I'm going to close with a little. I wish my throat would let me keep going, but I tend to lose it. But anyway, one of the last things I want to mention today is the data center problem. And the truth of the matter is, data centers need lots of resources. They need energy and they need water, and electricity and water. And when they locate themselves in a in a poor rural community that just kind of needs the money, uh, the small community is basically sold its birthright. The drinkable water problem is going to come back, or it's going to surface, and those things just aren't good for the environment. And it kills me to think that a poor country like Malaysia has taken in so many data centers because they really can't afford to say no. So guys, it's like I said, there's no solace and no comfort to be found anywhere in the world. And before we go, let's take a little trip. How about if we go a little north to Canada? Nah, I think they kind of hate us. How about Mexico and Central America? I kind of don't think so. How about South America? Let's try. How about Nicolas Maduro's hometown? Huh? Yeah, I don't think they like us either. The Australians, no, no, no. The EU's not only no, but hell no. And at that point, you just ain't got any friends. And in unity, there's strength. But you've got Turkey and Saudi Arabia and maybe the UAE moving towards a common defense pact over there. And, just a realignment of the Middle East. It's just another part of the blunder of going to war in Iran. And guys, like I said, at this point, we all know the credibility is, like I said, not exactly the Trump's or Republicans' strong point. So what we need to do, not only call out the lies, but we need to be the guys riding in on the white horses, and that's just a generic thing, to save the public. We need to be the knights in shining armor, looking out for people, because God knows we have so far fewer rights, and I'm talking to you as of August 19th. God only knows what's going to look like in November. How about even after that? How about until January 20th? Is anything really a given? Is it a given that Trump's going to voluntarily leave on January 19th or whatever it is? And if you believe he's going to leave voluntarily, please, like I say, call in and let's chat about this 949-629-3820. I'm going to make just a quick argument. And the argument is that somebody that puts like a new helipad, a new ballroom security structure up at a cost of like $500 billion, I'm going to make you a wager. And the wager is that people generally don't make those kind of improvements and then move out. They kind of make those kind of improvements when they're like plan on being there for a while, like maybe life or longer if the kids take over the biz. So, guys, I'm going to call it a day. And, remember the corruption, and stay upset about it. Stay strong, stay unified. Democrat, socialist, Democrat, communist. It doesn't matter. It's a Democrat. No more circular firing squads. The enemy here is the Republicans, not us. We are not our own enemy. And guys, on that cheerful note, I'm going to go ahead and do what we do about this time. And I think we have this thing called Roger Wilco over and out. Do we do that? Oh, you know what, guys? We did that. We just went a little